Welcome to the April 13th, 2021 County Administrator Issues and Updates before the Board of Clackamas County Commissioners. Gary.
Thank you, Chair Smith. All commissioners are present. Commissioner Savas is online. The other commissioners are in the room. Commissioner Schrader is on her way any second. We will get started. First, Hofelt Drive Gate Hearing Request. Dan Johnson, Director of Transportation and Development, will present. There was a memo in your packet. Go ahead, Dan.
Thank you so much. Good morning, Chair Smith and Commissioners. We're here just to kind of have a brief discussion with you, and we'll keep it as short as possible. This is something you don't hear about often, is a request to gate a public road. We have a process for that, an application process for that that's set up through ordinance. We have had an application submitted from the Rhododendron Water Association, and we want to just basically make sure that you're aware that this will be coming before you. We're going to request a date on or after April 29th, 2021, to have a hearing regarding this particular request. Any questions, any comments, any concerns?
Commissioners, do we have, Commissioner Scholl?
Dan, what sort of public safety issues would be involved if this was approved? So
when we assess these applications, things such as the classification of the road, is it a through road? Is it a minor local road? In this particular case, this is a very minor road, partially built, doesn't have any access or any through connectivity to provide safety issues with safety and connections of that nature that I'm aware of. But those are all things that we do consider when we look for these requests. These are few and far between, because in all honesty, we don't recommend approval for many of these. It's very limited circumstances. And this process is very similar to when you vacate right-of-way. When you give right-of-way, we vacate right-of-way back to property owners. But again, you haven't seen this. I don't think we've done one of these in 4 or 5 years, so I just wanted to make sure you knew it was going to come before you. If you had any questions, let us know.
I don't see any other commissioners making a comment. I see a staff recommendation that we set a hearing date for April 29, 2021 to consider the gating of a portion of Hofelt Drive. Gary?
So commissioners, would you agree to set the hearing on April 29th?
And do we need a motion on that or just a head nod?
Just a head nod, please.
Head nod. I don't see any disagreement.
And we can go later if there's not room, but obviously if that's possible, that'd be great.
Well, whatever date's available for you guys to do it.
Okay,
on the
very good.
29th.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you very much.
Next, request for the North Willamette Research and Extension Center, or NREC, Parker House Remodel Project. We have Elizabeth Comfort, Finance Director, Jeff Jorgensen, Facilities Manager. There was a memo in your packet. I wanted to make sure you're comfortable moving forward, and I would suggest if this is a longer conversation, we need to schedule a policy session. If this is not a quick answer, let's schedule a policy session. But go ahead, please, Elizabeth or Jeff.
Okay,
Good morning, Commissioners, Mr. Smith. My name is Jeff Jorgensen, the Facilities Management Division Director. Just want to talk about the North Willamette Research and Extension Center, NREC, which is down in Aurora for the OSU, so it's a research center. What has been requested is that OSU is wanting to do a improvement and remodel project in one of their buildings down there, the Parker House, which will be approximately $600,000, $800,000. They're trying to perform a lot of it in-house or even subbing it out. But this is just basically to go ahead and get the non-conforming use application process started. Just wanted to make sure that everybody understands that when we start that process, notification of the public goes out, half mile, all the circumference around the property. So you could get a lot of questions from property owners. But this property has been a non-conforming use with the office buildings for quite a few years. It is exclusive farm use, and that's why it's a non-conforming use, to have a building with laboratories on the property. That's the only reason. We just want to make sure that you guys are informed that if any questions come up, and that we can answer those, and if anybody has any questions for that. We also have Mike Bondi, the director of NREC here, so if you have any questions for myself or Elizabeth or Mike. Is that?
Any other presenters? Elizabeth Comfort, you're here?
No, I just want to make sure that you know too that talked to Mike Bondi, he said the extension had been out to 32 now.
Has been what?
Extension. Their lease on the property for NREC had been extended out to 2032.
Okay.
So.
So would the remodel include the extension office too?
No, it actually just is down in NREC. The office building is just a Parker House. There are currently some labs in there. They're one larger office area, but they're going to move those labs into the Parker House. So there's offices in there that they're going to remove and install 3 lab stations in the building. So it's an addition of 494 square feet, not very huge. So it's really pretty minor. Again, to get approval through DTD, it has to make sure it's not negatively impacting the property or the neighborhoods. And I've already talked to DTD. They don't feel it's going to be a big issue with any of those.
Okay. I see a light on, Christina.
Commissioner Savas has
Commissioner Savas.
Yeah, I don't have any particular heartburn with what I've heard so far, but I just want to let staff know, and if it's a fault on my part, I apologize. And that is that I struggled to read or see the attachment because it's so small. And I try to find a means to zoom it in, and I wasn't able to print the material off. So I wasn't able to read this part of the packet because the font was so small and the size was so small. So if we could do something a little bit better, that would help. My only comment about what I've heard so far is that I think it'd be just a great test of the waters, if you will. The neighboring neighborhood there, Charbonneau, has been very adverse to some other EFU properties nearby. Hopefully they're friendly to NREC and what they're doing and the research capabilities on behalf of ag. So I think, I think the mission for NREC is good, and hopefully the neighborhood will recognize it, but I just hopefully there won't be anything out of the woodwork as far as the purists that think that EFU land should be used exclusively for farming.
I guess I'd like to add, to make sure you understand, when we sign this paperwork for the non-conforming use, that's just the application. That's not the approval. So it goes to DTD. They go through the entire process. When they get done with that process, there is a public announcement, again, that 1/2 mile circumference around the property, but it's 20 days, and people can go ahead and put in an application, appeals process for that. So this is not approving it, it's just getting it moving.
Any other comments from commissioners? Do we agree to give the approval to apply for nonconforming use for the OSU remodel of NRAC?
Yes.
Yes.
I think we have consensus on that. Thank you for coming before the board today. Gary, up
Thank you very
next.
much. Next, advisory board and commission appointments. Christina, go ahead, please.
So we only have one ABC today, the Planning Commission, staffed by the DTD Planning and Zoning Division. Currently, they have 3 openings due to 2 term expirations and 1 resignation. They are for 4-year terms. They received 8 applications, and 3 are being recommended for appointment. Of the 3 for appointment, 1 is new, and 2 are currently on the commission. The recommendation goes as follows. Kevin Moss for 1st term, and it will be a partial term. For Carrie Pack, a 2nd term, and for Stephen Schrodel, a 2nd term. And that is my ABC.
Any comments? Commissioner Savas, was that you?
Yes.
Yes. Thank you, Chair Smith. Yeah, I just wanted to say that we had some excellent candidates, really excellent candidates. And part of the decision or preferences or discussion was around people that either lived in cities that didn't have as much ownership as those who lived in the county itself, in the unincorporated county, knowing that in the cities they have their own planning commission and their own processes. So I think that was a factor. And also geographic location was also a item that we discussed. And also felt that the contribution of the 2 existing members that are recommended for a 2nd term have done, great work, come awfully prepared, and are recognized as assets to the committee. So all that said, I just wanted to just speak to that, and I move we approve the Planning Commission positions for approval.
There's a motion on the table.
Second.
Okay, motion has been made by Commissioner Savas, seconded by Commissioner Schrader. Commissioner Savas and I conducted these interviews. They were almost all day long with staff, and each applicant had a half hour where we asked questions. And so we really vetted and used a lot of criteria in making the determination. Regarding Carrie Pack, she had only served a year, but what she brings to the table is an expertise based on her own professional work. She lives in Lake Oswego. Stephen Schroedel, I understand, I don't know him well. Well, I don't really know, these people, but I understand he's been quite an asset to this planning commission as well. We have Kevin Moss. We all know Kevin Moss. Staff is very excited to have him, from what I understand, to do this. We know he's ambitious and has energy galore, so I think he kind of would like to serve as a volunteer in Clackamas County, and I think that's tremendous. Christina, there's a light on.
Commissioner Fisher has her hand raised.
Commissioner Fisher.
Yeah, so I just want to thank Commissioner Savas and Chair Smith for going through those interviews. Really appreciate it, and I really support this recommendation. I just have to say I'm really thrilled personally to see Kevin Moss on our planning commission. When he worked for us, I'm not sure, Chair Smith, if he did the same job when he was with you before, but for us, he would put together all of the materials for our land use hearings and for our appointments. And during the course of those many situations, I had opportunities to really connect with Kevin and discuss issues and topics, and was ever so pleased with the level of depth that he brought. And so as a county commissioner, I'm thrilled to see
Good.
him as a decision maker to give us recommendations on how we're going to proceed.
Good. Thank you very much. Any other comments? Seeing none, Christina, could you call the poll, please?
Of course, Commissioner Fisher,
Aye.
Commissioner Savas,
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader,
Aye.
Commissioner Scholl,
Aye.
and Chair Smith.
Aye, motion passes 5-0. Congratulations to our Planning Commission appointees. Up next, Gary.
Next, your business meeting agenda review for this Thursday, April 15th, 2021. It is a morning meeting at 10 a.m. You have a full agenda. There's wildfire updates, ice storm updates, COVID-19 updates, Housing Authority consent agenda, 2 presentations, first on declaring National Public Safety Telecommunicator Week, and April is Child Abuse Prevention Month. Then a public hearing, which is a second reading of the ordinance that amends the county code regarding waste management fees. This is the Metro tipping fee second hearing. And then you have a lengthy consent agenda as well. If you have any questions on any of these items, if you'd please let me know, and staff can answer them for you before Thursday. Next, faith, community, and homelessness. Commissioner Fisher asked for this topic. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Administrator Schmidt. So during our town hall, I think it was Pastor Heather Riggs had testified about challenges with the county and interfacing with faith community regarding rules and regulations. And so I just wanted to bring that to this board and to talk about all my 4 commissioners who were there. And Chair Smith, you were absent last week, but everybody gave a thumbs up for further discussion on this. What I understood from the past is that because we had a declaration for a housing emergency, that certain regulations could be dealt with more easily, and that was sort of the point of having a housing declaration. And so when I keep hearing from members of the faith community that they're having challenges doing the things that they would like to do to help support the homeless situation, I just wanted to bring it up and just offer for you, Gary, if should be the next step so that we can look at this.
So what are we wanting to do with this, Commissioner Fisher?
Well, all I know is that members of the faith community have land that they may want to use to support people, or within their church that they may want to support people for shelter. And because of needing to require for permits, it makes it challenging for them.
Well, I would agree with that. Dan, you can come up. I met with our ZDO folks, and Dan knows about this. I've had similar issues brought to my attention regarding allowable uses for churches or church property. One, of course, is the clinic that is a subject of a lawsuit. I think that the staff is working on making that an allowable use. We also have another church who wants a school, and then we have another church who has a drug addiction facility on, I think, EFU land in the Highland area. They moved out of Portland. They were in downtown Portland, and because of the toxic atmosphere down there, it was not conducive to healing and recovering, so they found this great location. But it's not prime farmland, and they do gardens and so forth. And the recovery is tremendous. They have a very high rate of recovery from addiction, and they're a church as well. So this is an issue, and I agree fully with that. We need to look at this abroad, and I mentioned to the staff, I says, look, regarding the societal changes that we've observed in the last year at least because of the COVID situation, I would like to see our government be more responsive and more compassionate to the needs, and especially if we have groups willing to step up to the plate and assist us in offering these services, by all means. I think we should be less punitive but more compassionate in allowing some of these things to go forward, and I'm glad you brought that up. Commissioner Schrader, you're in the queue.
Yeah, I just wanted to, if CS staff could get us a list of who called in from the faith community. I know that Commissioner Fisher had asked for it. I'd like to get a copy of that, please. That's all I have.
Okay. Christina?
Commissioner Savas has his hand
Commissioner
raised.
Savas, you're in the queue.
Yeah, we, as Commissioner Fisher cited, we participated in that discussion, but I did want to say that with regards to Pastor Riggs, who had spoken, that Commissioner Fisher also mentioned, that I know that myself and other commissioners did their best to get our transportation DTD staff to work with her to figure out what she wanted to do, and identify all that. So I think that my recollection is that flexibility is nice. But that's a little bit vague, and I really didn't get any absolute certainty or see any particular plans or a proposal that that they were going to put forth. This being apparently this church, they had a couple different ideas, but I didn't really see anything with specificity. I also understand there's a House Bill 2006, I think, and I was hoping that maybe our staff could look into that and find out where AOC is on that, and even ask to perhaps advocate for that, which might, as I understand it, allow churches to do more on their particular property in this regard. But we have to recognize that no matter what we do or what we allow, that those things can and have been historically appealed, whether it's appealed locally or whether it's appealed at the state level, Thousand Friends, for example, or whoever it may be. So we've got to be careful, I think, to make sure that we follow at least have some guidance and rules that we do follow, and figure out what those exact details are. So maybe each of these, will require some staff time, but they're also going to require a specific proposal, so we know exactly what we're dealing with. And at this particular one, I didn't see any specificity or a written proposal. So I'm all for accommodating that, but in the broad sense, we got to be careful about just saying we open up the door for everything, regardless whether or not it's helping.
We have, commissioners, we have a work plan. Dan Johnson, please come up and address this. We have a work plan coming up forward that addresses a lot of the ZDOs. And I've instructed staff to bring be specific coming forward, Paul. You will get that. They are developing it. They are not going to have it for us today or even next week, so we're going to have to be patient with that. Dan, do you have a comment?
Go ahead. Share that, or me share? So regarding the topic around faith-based communities and transitional housing, there's legislature right now that's currently at the state. We're kind of waiting to see how that plays out, number one. And then also, we are going to have a discussion with you about transitional housing at our housing planning session on April 28th. That will be a part of that dialogue and that discussion as well. As it relates to the other topics the chair was discussing regarding the medical facilities and faith-based communities, things of that nature, we can have that as a part of our long-range planning work session discussion, which I believe is on the 27th.
Of this month?
Of this month, correct. And we can incorporate that as a part of that dialogue and that discussion.
Okay, that's good. Regarding House Bill 2206, is that it?
We're looking into the AOC, whether or not, I have a text out right now, I haven't got confirmation, but we will get back to you about that and confirm it to you.
And PGA is in support of that? Gary?
I don't know, we'll have to find that out.
We'll have to find out.
that out.
Yeah, well, they need to be in support of that. I think this board would be in agreement with that. Yeah, Christina?
Commissioner Fisher has her hand raised.
Commissioner Fisher?
Yeah, so my question, Dan, we have a housing emergency that's still in place, is that right?
Correct.
Is that okay. So, and I do know that when we had the wildfires and Heather Riggs had set up a smoke-free shelter within a matter of hours, it was a Herculean effort. I went out there, I think Commissioner Savas may have also gone out there to see it. Well, I'm just curious, what does our housing emergency allow? And can some of these, and I'm not quite sure exactly, and I share Commissioner Savas's concern. This was brought up in a town hall. And so maybe I'm just putting this, you don't have to answer it now, but just put on your list of things to talk about. What does our housing emergency declaration allow? And would it allow more flexibility, because we are in an emergency, for faith-based communities to meet the needs of people who are unsheltered?
And we can have a discussion around that. I want to hearken back, though, to that dialogue. If you recall that certain church over off Webster Road, the King of Kings dialogue, that was a lengthy, painful discussion with a lot of community interest in that. And there was some concern about executing that emergency declaration to meet that need. That's why we were hoping for some legislation to come out to kind of really mold that process a little more tightly. We did that as a temporary permit for use not otherwise allowed, which caused a lot of community angst, for lack of a better word. But we will include in our presentation an assumption and some clarity around what that emergency declaration allows the board to do.
That would be awesome.
Yep.
Thank you so much.
Yep.
I just wanted to issue spot it for us and. for
I
more
appreciate that. I think it's worthy of our consideration and work, definitely. Okay, Gary, up next.
So just quickly, the key takeaways, we'll find out about that state legislative bill, what AOC's position is, what our position is. If we haven't taken one, we should support it. And then also to find the housing declaration and email it to you all so you can read it. Again, Stephen, do you have that?
I'm looking for it right now.
Okay, we'll email it to you all so you know exactly what it does. So technically, we're under 4 emergency declarations. This is the 4th. We don't talk about it, but the housing state of emergency, August 1st to August 1st. This is the 3rd year we've been enacting that, so. Okay, thank you. Next, draft delegation letter on COVID vaccines. Commissioner Savas requested this letter. There is a draft letter in your packet to the members of our congressional delegation. Commissioner Savas, would you like to tee it up, or would you like me to?
Thank you, Gary. Yes, I will. So last week in our discussions, we had talked about the fact that Oregon has the lowest hospital capacity per capita. And this came up when we learned that there was going to perhaps be a delay or a shortage in the vaccine dosages that were allotted to Oregon. I further learned that part of that is to the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. And I also learned that the dosages currently, despite lobbying in DC, that they're really being done, I believe, on a per capita basis by state. I'm not exactly sure. In my conversation with Governor Brown on Friday, she indicated that that was pretty well the case, and then possibly that Michigan, because of the severe outbreaks we're experiencing in Michigan, that they might have some further standing. On Sunday, the governor of Michigan was actually interviewed on national TV, and apparently she indicated that Michigan is probably not going to get any extra allocation due to their situation, that it was, I believe, again, back to the per capita distribution. So our discussion, and I think the letter is worthwhile sending, and that is to point out, and with maybe some more emphasis to the letter, that this hospital capacity, we could perhaps close with that. That puts us we're more vulnerable if we do experience an outbreak like some of the other states in the union. So getting ahead of it would be a good idea. So I like the letter. I would simply just want to strengthen the letter towards the bottom to emphasize that we're not just asking for an equitable share, because the equitable share is what we're currently getting as far as per capita, if that's the case, but perhaps that we can get a little bit greater than an equitable share to assure that, to deal with, again, our vulnerability when it comes to hospital capacity. That's what I have.
Commissioners, do we have comments on this letter? Equitable share, probably we should say something about our share based on per capita population. We're way below that. Is that a better phrasing, Paul?
Well, I just don't know if what I heard from either the governor or I heard from on the national news is correct. Are we actually all getting an equitable share? Because equitable would probably mean, well, I don't know. Is it equal or equitable if it's done per capita? That's a difficult discussion. If equitable is the definition of the way it's worded there, is based on other factors like, outbreaks or other factors such as limited hospital capacity, then great. But could someone enlighten me on their interpretation of what that sentence means?
Is Nancy in the room or Philip?
Just a minute. Just a minute, Paul, we're checking.
Nancy, just let me pull her in.
Okay, well, I'm going to put Nancy on the spot. Nancy Bush is in the room. One moment, please.
Yeah, we're waiting for Nancy Bush to come on. I don't have an idea about changing that language at this time.
Nancy is in here. I'm not sure if she is away
Nancy, are
from
you
her
listening? Nancy?
computer.
You there?
Is she in the void?
She's brought in, but
Okay, well, maybe we can hold on this until we get staff in the room and we can come back to this.
Can
But
I ask a question?
Yeah, go ahead, Sonia.
Curious, our voice, and Paul, forgive me if you've said this, but is AOC coming along and joining in this perspective? Because that would make it stronger if it was all
Well,
of
there's a
Oregon.
link on this letter, and I just clicked on it, and it takes us to a Oregon health officials decry uneven COVID-19 vax supply. So it sounds like the Oregon Health Authority is talking about it, and they're making some, Patrick Allen. Who's Boyle?
Well, this issue hasn't come to the Health and Human Services Committee of AOC, so we had a board meeting yesterday, probably would have brought it to the whole board, had it gone through those channels, but I just think it would be stronger if it was from the whole state.
Well, it probably would.
Yeah.
So I
But we
guess
could
I guess our question today is, do we want to go ahead and do it anyway, or do you
Yeah.
want to do the other route?
Yeah, no, I think we could do it, and
Okay.
then just suggest that others follow along.
And this news article is interesting. They're saying if they allocated the vaccination according to a per capita basis, we would have probably twice the amount of people vaccinated in our state as we currently do.
Well, let's get on it.
Yeah, it's a little blue-colored link.
Yep.
And I just scanned through it. I didn't read, but I do think that was interesting. Raise a ruckus.
you there? Okay. Nancy Bush is on now.
Okay, Nancy, can you,
Can you repeat the question, please, Commissioner Savas?
Yeah, so Nancy, in that last paragraph, it talks about an equitable share, and I just want to, and what you missed out on, and I didn't have a chance to speak to, is Commissioner Fisher and Smith were speaking to a letter dated April 2nd, and when I spoke to the governor on Friday, that was, April 8th or 9th, I believe.
9th?
So is it, as fluid as things are, is the distribution as of today based on a per capita basis? Or is it based on other factors such as outbreaks or, hospital capacity or whatnot?
So the federal share right now is based on it's not based on a per capita necessarily distribution, which is why the governor has brought this up as well as we're bringing it up. It is, for example, Michigan right now has got a horrible outbreak. They're like the worst state in the country. So we're seeing more vaccine go there because of those issues. Does that answer your question, sir?
Well, it does. So my question really is, in that paragraph, in that sentence where it says an equitable share, if we were to say and argue for our hospital capacity situation and our rising case counts, would we get more under that definition of equitable?
I think,
You froze, Nancy.
yep. Nancy is frozen right now.
seen because of that per capita.
Nancy, can you repeat that? You froze a minute. I'm sorry. Would you please repeat your statement?
Yes, sorry about that. So I think that we probably should be more clear in that, because what we are asking for is, because we have fewer hospital beds per capita, compared to other states, we are wanting a fair share because of that, or more vaccine because of that. So it probably should be stated more clearly.
Yeah, thank you. That was my observation. So if we could add some emphasis to that last paragraph and state that hospital capacity again, and that our rising cases and so forth, I think that would be, I agree with my colleagues. We should send it anyhow, anyhow being in context of appealing to AOC to do same. Let's do both approaches. But if we can just make those small edits, Nancy, and then maybe bring that back this afternoon perhaps, and get that letter out, that'd be great.
Okay, absolutely.
You know, the state's already requesting more vaccinations, and Sonia, I would really like you to take this to AOC, but isn't that a month out for your next meeting or not?
Well, technically, yeah. But I'm not sure how they would do it. They have special, Commissioner Schrader would know because was president. But they do have a special operations group that meets when they need to do things more quickly, and they can, if we think that would be, if we want to do that, we can absolutely.
You could certainly talk to President Cribbins about that. That's the executive committee
Yeah.
is largely in charge of that, and I'm past president, so I'm not really technically on that anymore. But if you wanted to give her a call and see if that's something that they could do,
Yeah,
that'd
so
be great.
I would suggest we do our thing, and I'll check with AOC, see what the process is to get them on board, but not to stop our process for theirs.
Gary, as far as making any additions or subtractions to this letter, what do you think the reasonable timeline for staff to be on this?
Reasonable as we come back to you Thursday, but if you want it today, we can do it today.
I think Thursday's okay.
Okay.
And if any other commissioner wants to, add something to that, we can certainly have input on it. So if we're going to vote on it on Thursday, is it possible that we could have it the late afternoon Wednesday?
Yes.
For commissioners to look at?
I'll
And
have
then
an
we
updated
can,
draft for you tomorrow, and we'll discuss it at your business meeting on Thursday.
and just have a special item on the agenda for the business meeting to approve the letter.
Yes,
I think it would have more impact to it at our business meeting,
we will do that.
for whatever impact this potentially has, which I doubt really it would have much, but it would, yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Do that. Thank you very much. Thank you, Nancy, for being available at no notice. Appreciate it. Okay, next, a project turnkey update. Commissioner Fisher.
Yeah, so this is another issue spotting when we've been discussing turnkey in executive session. It was discussed about doing cost-benefit analysis to see about the difference of purchasing a structure or continuing to contract and rent rooms. And Jill Smith provided this very high level, doesn't have any meat to it at all. I mean, maybe a little bit of meat, but not a lot of meat or explanation. But I think it was really striking that to take the Econo Lodge as an example, to continue, because we will continue to rent out those rooms for shelter for people who are unsheltered. And that cost is $1.8 million a year. If we were to purchase, the cost would be $1.19 million a year. And I did ask if that cost in purchasing included maintenance and repairs, and the answer I got was yes. But I think that for this board, future analysis, we would need to look at the future costs of the increased cost of potential maintenance and repairs, because we all know that we don't want a situation where we ever purchase something that ends up costing us too much down the road. But I wanted to close the loop on this for my colleagues to let you know that this analysis was done. It would be quite a cost savings if we were to purchase the facility. And my concern as far as the market goes is I can see that the private industry, because this will be such a demand with the homeless services dollars, will buy up these potential hotels and then charge the taxpayer more. So if we can get ahead of it with whatever resources we have, it's something we need to put on our list and have the forefront of our thinking. And just wanted to spot this for folks.
Commissioner Savas, you're in the queue.
Yeah, well, I'm not really sure, Commissioner. I think your numbers are a little bit mixed up perhaps. I believe it was, the purchase price was closer to 2 million. I think it was 1.9, not 1.19.
Yeah.
But that said, I appreciate the cost analysis, and like you just stated, which I completely agree with, we don't want to, basically buy something and have those costs ballooned. And that's exactly what we have unfortunately a history of. We bought the Webster Road property with the understanding, I even spoke to the mayor of Gladstone about this yesterday. We bought that property with the understanding that we'd be able to move in there pretty swiftly with low cost and they'd be ready to go. And here it is 2 years later, and we're a year away from it opening. And the cost has ballooned significantly. So, the cost analysis needs to include, by the way, it needs to include the retrofitting that's required. It needs to include what the operating cost would be. So if we own the building, we would have to staff it. Right now, when we pay those rents, we're paying for the staffing, we're paying for the utilities, we're paying for everything. So if you've got a thorough cost analysis on anything we want to pursue, and relatively some kind of an assurance or guarantee that it's not going to be another pig in a poke, then I'm probably more receptive. So that said, in general, I think that applies. But if you want to talk about the Econo Lodge specifically, please let's not forget that this is the highest poverty area on the boulevard. Let's not forget that it's in some age groups of children that the poverty rate is 100% of children. Let's not forget that this is a highest crime area on McLaughlin Boulevard. Rothy Road and Ina Street, that area right there is the highest crime area, in the second highest. There's two of them. They're not more or less. That one is off of Kazi, off of 82nd, and the other one is the Rothy Ina area right there. And I learned that the hard way. I learned that the hard way when a deputy sheriff showed up after we were held up at gunpoint at a property adjacent to the Jennings Lodge, or the Econo Lodge. A friend of mine was shot in the back and killed just down the street. The place my daughter worked, a block away, they were held up at gunpoint. Fortunately, my daughter and my wife and I fortunately took her out to lunch that day, or she would have been in there. But when this guy, shot the young man, fortunately he wasn't killed. How about the people that were literally beaten at the local Plaid Pantry? This is not a safe place. So, if the best practices are to place people in areas that are not impoverished, that have these high risk, and we want to help people get a lift, let's talk about where those places are. Have we done any analysis on the west side? Have we looked at properties on the west side of the river? Or are we just looking for properties on the east side? I mean, all these are factors. So I don't know what we did look at, but certainly I think we ought to be thoughtful that we don't put people in substandard areas. And also from a cost analysis standpoint, we're not getting into another situation where we have a 2 or 3 year delay and the costs go up 4, 5, 6, 7 times the original amount. So until we have a better track record, I don't have a lot of confidence we can accomplish that, unless you know something I don't know.
Thank you, Commissioner Savas. Commissioner Schrader, you're in the queue.
Yeah, I just had a quick question. I think Gary can answer it. So we rent the building now, 36 units.
How many units?
I think 36. Are we renting all 36, whether or not they're occupied?
That is correct, yes.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to clarify that. Okay. So is it currently full? Is it at capacity at this point?
I don't know offhand. Jill Smith's in the room. If she can answer that very quickly, please.
And can I just jump in? I just wanted to correct something quickly for Commissioner Savas.
Yeah, briefly, please.
Yeah, Commissioner Savas, these aren't my numbers. These are the Housing Authority's numbers.
Okay, thank you.
And the memo does say operating cost. It does not talk about purchase. It just says the total operating cost to buy the hotel is 1.1 million, to rent it is 1.8. That does not include the purchase price.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's the other clarification that I wanted to make sure.
Is Jill Smith in?
She is in the room.
Go ahead, Jill, are you
I
there?
am here. Yes, I am. In response to that question, the units have been occupied consistently and constantly. We've sent information on that to Commissioner Savas, and I'm happy to share that with everyone. And I just want to clarify one thing. The $100 per unit for rent does not include services. That's just the cost of the rent and the operations of the hotel. So there's additional cost on top of that.
Okay, please stay around. We might have another question. Commissioner Scholl.
Yes, am I not correct that the project turnkey money dries up on 1 June? That is if there's any left, right? The other thing is that,
It's July 1st, doesn't it, Jill?
is it July 1st?
Yes, it goes back, it's returned to OHCS July 1st.
Okay, July 1st, okay. So, looking at this 36 units and the cost, your idea, Commissioner Fisher, to enable churches to take in homeless people, that's really a good idea. We have hundreds of churches spread out over the entire region. By enabling them to take in homeless people under certain restrictions regarding public safety and sanitation and public neighborhood input, we would have the capacity to house potentially hundreds of people at no public expense. So I think we need to turn from this project turnkey back to your idea to enable churches and remove some of the restrictions, but not all restrictions, and solve this problem that way. Thanks.
Christina, there's somebody's in the queue.
Commissioner Savas has the
Commissioner Savas.
Yeah, I just want to just clarify. Jill, help me out here. I just looked again at my paperwork. The sale price of that was 1.9 million, not 1.1. Is that correct?
Yes, and the sales price is not assumed in this cost and operating analysis. It's
Right.
assuming that we have a grant to purchase it. This is just comparing ownership versus, contracting or leasing.
Right. And the number of units is 27, correct? Not 36.
In the analysis, the number 36 was used. We were not basing this on any specific site. It's just on information that we gathered as we went through this process on
Yeah,
unit
but
costs and service
my point is the price and the units was cited by Commissioner Fisher as the Econo Lodge. So the site was 1.9 and the units there is 27. Is that correct?
I believe so.
Okay, so just want to put the math back there that your sample analysis of 36 units was a hypothetical, and that this particular location is 27. The price was 1.9, not 1.1. So the operation cost, that's basically what I said, the operation cost to operate the building. The operation cost that you mentioned, Jill, was the support services, which are different, and I realize, but so the analysis needs to be broader than that. And also the part that's not factored in there is that frankly, I didn't see any detail as far as would actually take to really retrofit that for a kitchenette and all those factors and the electrical. And I did not see any hard numbers from any contractors what the actual retrofit of that facility was. Unless I missed it, I apologize.
So the assumptions made in this very high level analysis are basically assuming that we own the property through some sort of grant or major acquisition, and then just comparing operations as an owner for a shelter or basically for shelter operations. This does not talk about at all converting these to permanent housing, which is something that should be considered in the event we decided to acquire a property versus spending money to lease rooms. It just gives you that option. So you're right, Commissioner Savas, we would need to consider location, condition, and opportunity for future use if we were to decide to purchase a motel.
Thank you, Jill. That was the point I was trying to make. Thank you.
Okay, any other discussion on this item? All right, Gary, what's up next for this?
Okay, next, the last item is Commissioner Communications, but I would like to go over the consent agenda request first, please.
Sure.
That's okay. All right, we start with the person in the room gets to go first. So Elizabeth, you've been patiently waiting. We'll start with the Department of Finance. First, approval of an amendment with Moss Adams for annual financial audit services. Amendment adds 1 year of audit services for $326,200 for a total contract not to exceed $1,777,700, funded by cost allocation and general funds through the Finance Department. Elizabeth.
Thank you, Gary. Good morning, Chair and
Would you speak directly? Thank you. Is your microphone on?
Should be automatically.
Okay,
Testing.
there we go.
Yep, just talk right into it, please.
How's that?
That's great.
That's better.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, Chair Smith and Commissioners. Yes, we'd like to bring this amendment to you. We've already presented this to the Audit Committee and reviewed an extension of 1 year with Moss Adams with them. This would give us continuity in getting through this next fiscal year audit of 2021. We've just completed March 31st, our audit of fiscal year 1920. So what we would do is, following the extension of this contract for 1 year, we anticipate that the audit would be completed in December, so December 31st of 2021. And then so by early spring in '22, we would put out an RFP for beginning the fiscal year audit of 21-22 in May with the selected new audit firm or current, whichever the RFP took us. So this will be on the consent agenda next Thursday.
Commissioners, do we agree? Okay.
Okay, great. Next, approval of an amendment with Oregon Emergency Management FEMA state agreement for the coronavirus disease. This is ongoing and the fiscal impact is unknown at this time. Funding, though, is through FEMA, not general funds. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. May of 2020, we approved the state agreement for FEMA for 75% reimbursement from, January of 20 through September of 2021. This amendment allows us to seek 100% FEMA reimbursement for public assistance. Currently, we have 100% FEMA reimbursement for our sheltering already, and so this amendment would bring us to coincide with that for 100% for additional public assistance.
Thank you. Commissioners, we agree with this. Okay, thank you, Elizabeth.
Great, thank you, Elizabeth. Next, County Council, Stephen Madcore, enter into a license agreement with Jason and Christy Boyd to access and board up 2 horses at property donated to the county by John and Mary Lee Wetton.
Thank you, Gary. Quick background for the board, because prior to your arrival in January, the Wettons, they donated about 12 acres of property valued about $600,000 to the county for parks purposes. It's off of South May Road. This happened last year. One of the requests of the Wettons and their local educators was that the neighbor who had his horses there, he does pack horses and he pastures 2 of them there. He had hoped that the county could accommodate these folks for the short term. The prior board said, yes, we can do that. And what this does, it's a license agreement. It allows Mr. and Mrs. Boyd, who live right next door, to pasture their 2 horses there, no more than 2, and to maintain trails there, because that's where he trains them. And they will also keep an eye on the property for security purposes as well. It's terminable at will, meaning if we want to cancel it, 30 days notice and it's done. But it's kind of like a good neighbor agreement with the Boyds, and it is consistent with the desires of the donors themselves, the Wettons. So this is scheduled for Thursday. The Boyds have already signed it. And if this board were to agree with it, then we would just record that document as a license agreement.
And that's for 1 year, Stephen?
No, this is, it's indefinite unless it's terminated or modified otherwise.
Okay, I see no problem with that. Board, do we agree?
Yes.
Thank you. We
Okay,
do.
thank you. Now back to the start of the list. We'll start with Business and Community Services. Sarah is online to present. First, joint permit application for the Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife Eagle Fern Weir Dam Removal Project. County Parks will pay $960 toward the Weir Removal Project. All remaining project costs of the $129,000 project are paid for by other parties. My only question, Sarah, is that $960 general fund or not? Please answer that in your presentation. Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you, Gary. Good morning, Chair Smith and Commissioners. This project will sound familiar to you as we brought it forward on a March 23rd policy session. To provide an overview of it, Tom Riggs, our Parks and Forestry Manager, was there, as well as Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife staff. What has changed is initially when we came to you, we had the understanding that a letter of support was going to be needed from the board for this. And since the policy session occurred and as we proceeded with ODFW, the documentation requirements are actually a bit different. So we wanted to bring them back to you to just discuss that. What is needed is a joint permit application for the county to apply for the project, along with ODFW and other partners, and then also a memorandum of understanding. So we wanted to bring this in. The project has not changed. It is correct that Parks has $960 out of their budget. It is not general fund, and the remaining costs for the project will be borne by the partners involved in the project. So given some of the time sensitivity on this too, Chair, I did want to request that this go to consent this week, if possible. So I welcome any questions.
Any comments or questions? And no objections? Okay, you have approval?
And are you okay with the second part of this request is also to do a memorandum of understanding between the county and the Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife? Is that okay to put on the agenda
Yes,
as well?
yes, that's fine.
Okay, very good, Sarah. So both will go on this Thursday, April 15th. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, next, Health, Housing, and Human Services. Is Rod online?
He is.
Okay, great. First, approval of an agreement with the Oregon Department of Transportation, Rail and Public Transit Division for rural transportation funds for COVID-related operations of the Mount Hood Express. The maximum to be funded would be $205,000. No match is required. No general funds are involved. Funding is through the Federal Transit Administration Rural Transportation Funds. Rod, go ahead.
Yes, hello, Commissioners. This is a revenue contract for $205,000. It's basically due to social distancing requirements with our Mount Hood Express transportation unit. So this additional funds would allow us to put more folks on, more passengers on, and increase the capacity and cover cost for services and maintenance of the system. So this is a revenue contract. There are no matches required with these funds.
Any comments? No objections, go forward.
Very good. Next, approval of a professional services agreement with Northwest Permanente and Oregon EMS specialists to provide services as Associate Emergency Medical Services Medical Directors. Contract maximum for Northwest Permanente is $264,097, and Oregon EMS specialists is $262,185. No general funds are involved. Rod, go ahead, please.
Yes, and this is actually going to come to you in the way of two different contracts, and Gary's mentioned those, Northwest Permanente, and then another one to Oregon EMS Specialists. Responsibilities of these folks include developing and modifying clinical protocols, quality improvement processes and metrics, and providing training, consultation, and advice to first responders. So this is a contract we have with two different individuals to do this function for us. No general fund is part of this system.
Thank you. Commissioners, we agree. Looks like it.
Great, thank you, Rod. Next, Development Agency, which I assume Dan Johnson, is he online?
Yes.
Okay, approval of a contract with Harper Huff Peterson Regelis for construction management services for the D Street Road Improvement Project. The contract amount is $354,800, funded through the North Clackamas Revitalization Area Urban Renewal District. No general funds are involved. This request is also to go on this Thursday's agenda. Dan, please go ahead.
That was a mouthful. Chair Smith and the rest of the board, yes, Harper Hoff, Peterson Regalis is currently completing the design for two new roadways near the Fuller Station Park and Ride. Essentially, the development agency has elected to have Harper Hoff perform construction management services for the duration of the project. Services to be provided include inspection, construction engineering, construction staking, contracting and utility coordination, preparation of record drawings, and post-construction survey. Total fee for this work is approximately $354,000. We have been working closely with our procurement office and the Department of Finance, and it is consistent with LCRB rules. We'd request this go forward on the consent agenda this Thursday.
Any comments, commissioners? Approval.
Okay, next are for the Department of Transportation and Development. Dan will still present. First, approval of a First Amendment to an intergovernmental agreement between Clackamas County and the City of Beaverton for provisions of permit processing and building inspection plan review services. Negotiated rate for service is $44.82 an hour or $49.73 overtime an hour. Funding comes from Building Codes Division, fee-for-service revenues, no general fund involved. Dan, go ahead.
Thank you so much. Under the current IGA, Clackamas County's business construction, or pardon me, our building department coordinates with the City of Beaverton to utilize the services of a fully trained and certified city employee. Basically, this arrangement is more economical than using our current existing third-party contracts, and the total dollar amount will be based upon the actual hours worked during the time frame of the agreement. The request before you today is to simply extend this IGA an additional 6 months.
Okay. Commissioners, we're okay with that? Yep.
Great. Next, approval of an intergovernmental agreement with the City of Happy Valley for the Pleasant Valley Villages, Phases 2 to 13, planned unit development. There is no financial impact associated with this agreement. Go ahead, Dan.
In short, this agreement is intended to defend, indemnify, and hold the county harmless for any liability arising from the city's actions or omissions in the course of fulfilling, I say conditions here, and we'll explain this in 1 second, in a land use decision, final conditions for approval for the Pleasant Valley Villages development. It's a planned unit development. Essentially, the city is coordinating with this developer and is required through certain conditions of approval for this developer to construct a roundabout. And essentially, this agreement simply is between the city and the county and provides us coverage in regards to liability in regards to the project.
Commissioners, comments? Approval?
Looks good.
Looks good.
Okay. Next, approval of a resolution declaring the public necessity and purpose for acquisition of rights-of-way, easements, and fee property for the Boardman Creek Headwall Repair Project and authorizing good faith negotiations for condemnation actions. Right-of-way acquisition costs are estimated not to exceed $16,000, and I assume that's no general fund. Please confirm, Dan, and go ahead.
That is correct. There's no general fund associated with this request. As we've talked before, this is kind of the first step in any right-of-way negotiations we have with property owners on any capital projects. And essentially, inconsistent with federal requirements for right-of-way acquisition, we have to do this necessity. Declaration of necessity is the first step. As we talked before, if there were any proposed condemnation action, that discussion would take place with the board before any action was taken. But essentially, this allows our folks to go out and start negotiating with these property owners on these projects.
And how many property owners?
I believe there's only one or two on this one. I mean, we've only got a $16,000 right-of-way budget associated with it, but I can confirm and get back to you.
Comment?
Commissioner Savas has his hand up.
Commissioner Savas?
Is this related, Dan, to the Jennings Lodge Avenue project? Or where Boardman Creek, where's this located at?
I can get you more details about the specific project.
I don't have any issue with approving it, so that was just more curiosity.
Okay,
Yeah, no,
thank you.
we'll get that information to you, Commissioner.
And we agree with this, Commissioners? Yes, we do.
Okay, next, approval of an intergovernmental agreement between Clackamas County and the City of Canby to transfer permitting authority and maintenance responsibility for a portion of North Locust Street, North Maple Street, and South Redwood Street to the city. Transfer costs are based on the actual cost of a 2-inch asphalt overlay, pre-overlay preparation, and ADA improvements totaling $348,523, no general fund. Go ahead, Dan.
Well, basically, you nailed it. I'm not sure what more to add to that. Essentially, we've had discussions about the mutual benefit of the county transferring roads that are in or adjacent to cities and getting them out of our jurisdiction and into the jurisdiction of the cities. And essentially, this is one of two requests you're going to see today to coordinate closely with the City of Canby to transfer the roadways that Administrator Schmidt mentioned.
Sounds
Those
like
costs,
a winner.
just to make
Sounds
sure
like a winner to me. Christina,
Yeah,
who's
they'll-
in the queue?
Commissioner Savas has his hand
Savas,
raised.
go ahead.
I just have another comment. When I saw the word Redwood Street, I got excited for a moment until I saw it was in Canby, but just want to let people know, are there gravel roads in Clackamas County? Yep. Redwood Street off of, I think Anyhow, there's a gravel road that I walk often, and there's also a gravel road off of Courtney. But I just want to let you all know that we have gravel roads still in Clackamas County. So I got excited, but Redwood Street in Oak Grove is half gravel.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, we like this? Okay.
All
Approval.
right, next, approval of an intergovernmental agreement between Clackamas County and the City of Canby to transfer permitting authority and maintenance responsibility for portions of North Maple Street and North Redwood Street to the city. Transfer costs are based on the actual cost of a 2-inch asphalt overlay and ADA improvements totaling $433,342. Go ahead, Dan.
I'm not sure what else to add to that. Essentially, as with the prior request, this is simply additional areas of roadway that have been negotiated with the City of Canby for the transfer from county jurisdiction into the city's jurisdiction for long-term maintenance and responsibility.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, we like this too? I think so. Next.
Okay, finally, a board order adopting the vacation of a portion of Deer Park Road in the Welch's area. Dan, go ahead.
Thank you so much. Deer Park Road is a non-maintained local access road, was dedicated to the public through basically a subdivision plat for Deer Park back in April 5th of 1910. It's located in the Welch's area. Essentially, the petitioners wish to vacate this portion of Deer Park Road that lies north of their property, although the plat of Deer Park Road shows the road ending at the Salmon River. It currently does not end there currently. It ends short of that. We'd request this go on the consent agenda. And I do have to do a quick declaration. I have to declare the fact that just in case there's a perceived conflict of interest, one of the property owner or the petitioner is essentially, I guess you'd call them a cousin-in-law. My work on this has simply been to link or direct them to the appropriate staff member who reviewed and processed this application. I have no information regarding this particular request. I have no decision authority over this particular request. There has been no nepotism. I have no financial benefit from this request. I have discussed it with County Counsel Stephen Magfor and don't believe there's any conflict of interest. But we just want to make that declaration so everybody's aware of that.
Thank you, Dan. Commissioners, we like this? I believe so.
Okay, great. Thank you, Dan. So that is the request list. There are 3 items you approved to go for this Thursday, and all the rest will go next Thursday.
Okay.
Final item is Commissioner Communications. Chair Smith.
Okay, who wants to go first today? Commissioner Scholl.
I'll be happy to. In regards to liaison to the Association of Oregon Counties Governance Revenue Committee, there's discussion yesterday on the Oregon Alert System, a statewide system that enables states, counties, cities, tribal governments to issue warnings, providing people in Oregon with meaningful opportunities to make life-saving decisions in face of emergencies. Chair Smith, are you up on Oregon Alert System?
Yes, I am.
Okay,
Thank you.
okay. So I just want to also mention that this will provide communications through multi-channel text, landline, cellular voice, social media, and it is supposed to be up and operational statewide in May.
Wow.
So this is going to be hopefully the tool to communicate to the people of Clackamas County to alleviate the kind of coordination problems we had last year.
Well, I sure hope so. You know, it's an issue that I've been talking about, and we'll just see at the extent of how it operates.
Exactly. Well, it's being tested now.
Good.
And so hopefully in the next month or 2, we're going to get some good news from the state on how that's operating.
Wonderful.
The next thing also on the Governance and Revenue Committee, we just talked about today being a crossover deadline for bills to make it out of their chamber of origin. So tonight, about half the bills in front of the state legislature are probably going to die.
Mm-hmm.
So tomorrow afternoon, we'll see what's left and see what the good news and what the bad news is.
Good.
And then also yesterday on the AOC meeting on public safety, House Bill 2949 is a behavioral health workforce bill. And the concern was from the committee that we need to look at the county liability issue when the state diverts people out of the state mental hospital to counties for treatment without state resources. the state needs to indemnify the counties. I bring that up only because that might be something we need to look at. This whole thing about behavioral health, public health, mental health problems is a huge problem. And by looking at this HB 2949, it might help us get a step ahead of the
Okay.
problem.
Good.
And that's all I have.
Thank
Chair
you,
Smith.
Commissioner Scholl. Commissioner Savas.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'll just limit my comments to a conversation I had with I kind of mentioned earlier with the governor on Friday. In the chair's stead, I was asked to call the governor a few times last week, so had a good conversation, and I think 3 points were covered. The first one was the hospital capacity, which we already discussed. I won't expand on that. The other one was messaging that maybe we and she offered to look into if they are doing targeted messaging to the age group in which we're seeing the largest spike in cases, the 20 to 29-year-old age group. So she indicated that she would be looking into that, and I also looked into it with our staff to find out if we're doing targeting messaging to certain mediums. What we watch for our information in our age groups is different than 20 to 29-year-olds. That was the point I was trying to make to our staff. And then the other issue we talked about was just the dire situation for some of the businesses with regard in Clackamas County, knowing that Clackamas County didn't get our share of the CARES Act. We know that. So that type of business compensation was not available to them like they were in the other counties. The fact that we have suffered, a lot of us suffered from basically the meltdown from the forest fires and also the ice storm. So our businesses and folks and employees, all of us have suffered more so than any of the other 2 neighboring urban counties. So we have a unique situation. So she also indicated that she would look into any possibilities for financial support and see if there was a way to package that together. I think, in all fairness, that perhaps Marion County might fit that as well, because they are a neighboring county that experienced both some ice storm and also more significant firestorm damage. So those businesses there suffered in a great way as well. So that's what I have. Again, good conversation, and I'll conclude my thoughts and for today. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Schrader.
Oh, thanks. I'm going to be brief. Yes, yesterday was AOC Day, and a number of us attended the legislative meeting. I know Commissioner Fisher and I and Commissioner Shull were there. I also attended the Board of Directors meeting, and I want to congratulate Gina Nickel. This was her first evaluation by the executive board, and she has come across with absolutely flying colors. She is a great executive director. She is the first woman executive director of the Association of Oregon Counties. She has built together a young, dynamic team that is doing a great job for all of us, for all the counties. At the legislature, she got very high scores. We felt that after the turmoil we had gone through with financial issues, getting that straightened out and rebuilding the organization I would like to say it's well on its way, but it really is, I think, pretty much done. I mean, I think that we're on the road to being successful and vibrant. The other thing we discussed was, as you know, there is a building that is across the street from AOC, and they are thinking of purchasing that building to give us more office space and to allow rural commissioners who have to come in for the meetings when that happens to actually have office space for them to utilize while they're there, should they have to stay overnight and things of that sort.
It's a great idea.
And also transportation, the transportation group is to hopefully solidify everybody in one large building. It appears as if that looks like it has a go-ahead. As I said, now that they're financially sound, they're looking to grow not only the staff, but physically as well. And there will probably be a dues increase, but I think all of the counties are willing to, I hope, are willing to go there because stronger counties mean a stronger state in Oregon. So, thank you.
Commissioner Fisher.
Yeah, so AOC Day, yes, it was. And for the Health and Human Services Committee, we have AOC Committee Day on Thursday in preparation for Monday AOC Day. So I just wanted to pick up, and it's really interesting hearing the different committees because it's kind of like AOC works on a lot of the same issues in the different committees from their different perspectives. And then the issue regarding people that need to have aid and assist that the counties are providing support to in the local community. I think it was pretty remarkable. In our committee, Alex, I think it's Geiler, is that right, from Eugene? Gary, you would know how to say his name. Geiler? Kyler. Thank you. I thought I might have that wrong. Really did a heavy lift in working with all of the stakeholders to look at how do we really make sure that people, first of all, are supported in the community, that there are resources that are adequate in the community. This is really what this is all about. But if things don't go well, then who should pay the price for that? Should it be the counties that are really doing this job from the state? And it's like, no, the state needs to indemnify the counties and make sure that we are protected. And so I really thought that was a great process. They did a lot of work behind the scenes, and we'll see how that bill goes. I'm hoping that it gets through. I think we should be advocating for that. It's important, and a lot of consensus from the stakeholders on that effort. So that was a big discussion in our smaller committee. And then the larger issue, it's so interesting hearing from the AOC staff on how, and we've heard it from our staff too, but just how very weird this legislative session is and how difficult it is to get information and have conversations and move things along. And this whole virtual world is very, very strange. So our Human Services Committee is basically just tracking what is happening and advocating in our certain areas with the budget for what's important for our association and our counties. This afternoon, the Human Services budget is up, DHS, and I'm going to be testifying on behalf of Developmental Disability Services this afternoon. Last week, there was a conversation with the Capital Construction Committee on the courthouse. They had excellent questions that they asked. I was so thankful. I was actually said a little prayer of thanks during that Gary Barth was there to provide the details for the legislators' in-depth questions. He did a great job. And of course, we all know Judge Steele gives a great case as to what is wrong with our current courthouse and why it needs to be replaced. So that all occurred last week, and today, like Commissioner Schultz said, is the last day for the bills in the originating chamber? Is that how I have it right here? Oh, no, I was on a different page. Anyway, the session is moving through fast, and hopefully we will get through it a little better than when we started. So keeping my fingers crossed there. So that's what I've got for today.
Thank you, Commissioner. Last night, I had my weekly phone call with the tri-chairs of Multnomah, Washington, and myself, along with Leah Horner, the governor's spokesperson on the COVID issue. Basically, I took my gloves off in dealing with the situation and the pandemic and our rising numbers. First of all, I asked, why did the governor not acknowledge our letter? She expects us to be good partners in her carrying out her initiatives. It is the respect due of fellow electeds that she at least acknowledge our letters and/or letter that was sent by this board last week, a unanimous vote, and that she at least take into consideration those items listed in it. I was relentless on that. I was also relentless on the fact that I believe in the management of this pandemic. We need to get out of metrics. It serves no one. It does not serve our population at all, our businesses, our gyms, our schools. We're all suffering. I also reiterated stated, my conversation that I had with the governor 2 months ago, that I would head up a statewide task force to deal with this pandemic, to how to live within this pandemic with known, future, and unknown viruses, that I think there are measures that we can be taking. I think that being in continual lockdowns, going from one phase to another at 25% to 50% is no longer doable. It's no longer realistic to ask our citizens to continue to do that. I think we need to start managing it. 32 states in this country, commissioners, are out of the lockdown situation, and California is looking at doing it in June 15th. Oregon can do better. Oregon's leadership is horrid on managing this pandemic when our cases are some of the lowest on a per capita basis in America, and that could be the reason why we're not getting the vaccination, because our cases are so low. So I want you to think about that metric for a moment. I offered again my services to chair the statewide commission on pandemic management, because I believe we could have a virus next year or the year after. And this state is wholly unprepared to manage that situation. We cannot expect our people to be locked up in their homes and our businesses to cease operation because people are afraid to breathe in a virus. I also asked, and they're concerned about the new strain of virus. I says, well, supposedly, our vaccination is supposed to cure that. Well, it might not. I says, well, what do you mean it might not cure that? It says, what good is the vaccination? I was told that the vaccination would work on the next strain. So you're admitting to me then that the vaccination does no good, is that right? Well, they really can't answer that. But I was very frustrated with our conversation. I let them know that Clackamas County is not going to be sitting idle while they continue in our lockdowns, and I'm going to be extremely vocal. I'm going to be very spirited in my comments going forward, as I said I would last Thursday when I submitted my additions to the letter that was sent. Those additions and those words will go out on media and social media, and somebody has to stand up and fight, and we believe we have to take a different course of action with the management of the pandemic moving forward. Wanted to let you all know that. And with seeing no other business before us, Gary, we return at 1:30 today.
Yes, correct.
Thank you very much.